There's a pattern so obvious, so undeniable that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Wherever faith dominates a community, poverty follows close behind. Not just personal financial struggles, systemic economic stagnation, generational cycles of poverty, and even entire communities struggle to build sustainable wealth. Now, I know some folks are already reaching for their keyboards, but Durante, my faith has made me rich. Poor fella. And sure, individuals get lucky. The church has plenty of millionaires, but what about the communities? Because if faith alone was the key to prosperity, then the most religious communities on earth should also be the wealthiest. But that's not what we see. Instead, faith is often correlated not with prosperity, but with poverty, economic stagnation, and systemic struggle. And today, we're going to talk about why. Let's get into it. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is this dependency on external and often imaginary solutions. Faith sells itself as the answer to everything. Gun violence, prey on it. Troubled teens, send them to Bible study. Struggling to make ends meet, sow a seed, name it and claim it. It's a dependency mindset, one that teaches people to place their hope in external, often imaginary solutions instead of practical, real world action. And let's be real. Prayer has never stopped a bullet. Bible study doesn't teach financial literacy. And as much as prosperity preachers love to scream, you can't beat God's giving, statistically speaking, religious people are more likely to be taken advantage of in financial scams and schemes such as MLM. Why? Because faith conditions people to accept things without evidence, trust leaders without question, and ignore red flags in favor of believing the best. Which brings us to the next problem. Faith disrupts our understanding of cause and effect. One of the biggest hidden dangers of faith is that it robs people of the necessity of paying attention. See, in the real world, if something isn't working, you adjust, you problem solve, you analyze cause and effect. But when faith is your primary lens, you start seeing miracles and demons where there are just natural processes. A failed business isn't because of poor strategy, it's an attack from the enemy. A successful project isn't the result of hard work, it's God's favor. And when people are taught to explain success and failure this way, they stop thinking critically about what actually works. Because why study economics when you can just wait for a supernatural wealth transfer? Why plan for the future when God's got it? And here's the real question. If understanding and knowledge are constantly being replaced by intuition and revelation, how can a community ever build anything lasting? All right, here's a break. So, what do you do on Sundays now? Now that you're stepping away from superstition, what fills that space? Are you one of the millions still searching for a real connection, real conversations, and real ways to build relationships with like minded people? If that is you, I want to personally invite you to our Sunday sessions. This is where our global community comes together for progressive thinking, people centric, and life affirming conversations that actually matter. Right now, we're in a powerful series called The Looking Glass, where we're exploring the unseen forces that shape how we see ourselves, others, and the world around us. If you're deconstructing or already living free from faith, this is the space to engage with others, challenge ideas, and be a part of a conversation that helps you grow. There's no pressure, no judgment, just a community of people thinking critically and working on building something real. Jump in the chat this Sunday and check it out. We'd love to see you there. Mark your calendar, show up on any Sunday, and it's right here on YouTube. See you there. You belong in these conversations. Now back to regularly scheduled programming. So, the third thing I want to talk about is the willful inattention to results. Look, if faith was valid, it should be measurable. If prayer worked, we should see outliers. Communities that pray more should have significantly better outcomes, but they don't. When real results contradict belief, faith teaches people to ignore the data. So now we're judging things not by what works, but by what feels right. And that brings me to the most dangerous part. We start putting motives over movements. Faith actually breeds paranoia in this way. In communities where faith is the dominant worldview, intuition replaces logic, which sounds harmless until you realize what that actually means. See, instead of assessing people's action, people start assessing their motives, not by their movements, not by their track record, but by a feeling in their spirit, by a voice in their head. Now, let me ask you a question. If you have a community where 3 out of 5 people make their decisions this way, what's the likelihood that this community will successfully build a sustainable economic foundation? What are the odds that they will engage in cooperative economics, long term planning, or collective wealth building? It's not good, because when intuition becomes law, it makes strategic collaboration nearly impossible. You don't need facts to trust someone, you just feel led to. You don't need accountability and leadership, you just pray for discernment. You don't need proof that someone is against you, you just know it in your spirit. And this kind of thinking isn't just bad for economic stability, it's bad for community survival. And so, as we wrap up this conversation, I want to conclude with simply: faith doesn't pay the bills. At the end of the day, faith won't fix your finances. It won't build a stable economy. It won't create generational wealth, because hope without strategy is just a fantasy. And if we as communities want to stop struggling, if we want to actually build something that lasts, then we have to stop looking for answers outside of ourselves, because if we keep waiting for a God to move, we'll be standing in the same place forever. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think faith helps or hinders economic growth? Have you seen these patterns in your own community? Drop a comment below and let's talk. And if you're ready to keep digging deeper, check out these next videos. If this hit home for you, then you need to watch these next. First up, does God even matter? If you've ever wrestled with the question of God's existence, this is a great one to dig into. Next up, did you know that my wife has a channel? If you're into reading and personal growth, check out her video on the best books for productivity and mindset. And of course, again, thank you all for watching today. And again, until next time, keep rising.